but also learned, I think, through my grandfather and then especially dad, just the patience it took. But also what I think I really liked about the business was it's something different every day. You would take classes there. You'd take botany, limnology.
Sounds like great summer fun.
Yeah, I know. We've got some guys that have been with us, probably 40, 45 years. It's nice to have people that are competent at what they do, and I can step in and help when I need to, but also I'd like to build it to the point where they don't need me.
I didn't realize that the only way to do business development was to play golf.
Right. He's out there today. So hopefully we're developing a lot of business.
Right.
Kind of getting choked up a little bit thinking about, but see those kids know that they may not make it, but they want to see this go on is really impactful. The effort is there. The effort's being put in, and hopefully we're learning something every day so the next child can live and have that better outcome.
Welcome to another edition of No Holds Barred. I'm Rich Roth, and my guest today is Andy Flint of LG Flint, celebrating their 75th year in business. And one of the big things, obviously, that we'll talk about is the St. Jude home. But there's a lot going on here, Andy. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're aware that I spoke to a number of different people, and my goal is always to try and get a little bit of dirt.
Right. Yeah, I understand some were hard to track down, but I guess you're persistent. Hopefully, I don't know if I should say hopefully paid off, because I'm a little worried what you came up with. So.
Well, the whole story is fascinating. And I want to kind of walk through this because, it was interesting for me to find out your grandfather Lloyd started the business. Your dad took it over. Now you're running it, but that wasn't always the plan, was it?
Right. Probably not even for my dad either. I guess if we go back to my dad and then me, dad was a civil engineer by training at VMI, worked at Babcock and Wilcox, which is now, has been spun off to a number of different companies, and then Framingham, BWXT, but worked at Babcock and Wilcox, Wiley and Wilson, some surveying companies, went to the Vietnam War. So he had kind of a range of business companies he worked for, and when he kind of came back, and I think he was working for a surveying company, finally settled down and talked to my grandfather, and they realized that maybe it was a good time for him to come on. So his civil engineer training probably was a little bit more, of a fit for than what I did, and I was a little bit more roundabout as well. Although I will say I'd worked for the company as a kid. I started when I was 14. So I knew.
I think that's illegal in this day and age.
Well, you could get actually, I think for owners' children, there's not as much protections. I've found out with my kids too. But you could get a worker's permit, and so I started at 14. Sweeping out houses and going in crawl spaces, fixing things up, doing all the kind of the grunt work. Learned a lot. Kind of learned I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, but also had a healthy respect for the business. Wanted to go to school in architecture. Went to Virginia Tech. That was a really hard school to get into, and did not get into that. So wound up going and majoring in biology, and have always liked that field. But as I got farther and farther through tech, I realized that was going to probably require more school, whether that be, going to medical school or something like that. And I was just ready to be done with college. Right. So rather than kind of completely shift gears, chalk that up to having great experiences and learning a lot. I think college does prepare you for life in a number of ways. But yeah, after about my junior year, decided to kind of finish up, get my degree, and then came on in the fall of '97, and have been with Flint full time ever since. So.
Well, let me just say this: from my experience, you dodged a bullet with the architecture school, because I remember one of my first weeks up at college. It's Friday night; it's after midnight. We're walking back from the bars, and I see the lights on in a building, and I'm like, "What building's that?" They're like, "Oh, that's the architecture students. They're still working."
Yeah, that's well, Virginia Tech, that and engineering.
Engineering
and architecture. And I have a lot of engineering friends from Virginia Tech. Actually, I have a son who's an engineer. He went to Georgia Tech, and the amount of work that they do, it was remarkable to me, even when I was at Virginia Tech, that they even had any time for socializing. And as you know, most of the engineering programs have at least 10 to 15 more hours you have to take anyway, on top of just the level of classes that they're taking. It's pretty amazing, the math, all of it. So I've had a lot of engineers in the family, and a lot of respect to them. But that's a field I could never go on.
I mean, you're right. That's another one, because I roomed with a bunch of engineers as well, and they're always looking at me, and they're like, "You have no work. You're so lucky." And I'm like, luck has nothing to do with it.
Right. Yeah.
I chose communication for a very specific reason.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and you're good at it. You're in a great field.
That just worked out.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there going, what are the easiest majors that I could, find somewhat interesting and still not tax myself too much in college?
That's right. Yeah.
You got to have fun in college too.
I don't know that I picked an easy one. Biology had its moments.
Yeah.
And I had a chemistry minor. So my wife was biochem. Julie's biochem, and but we always joke, she'll probably hate me for this, but I actually had a better grade in the first time we took organic chemistry than she did.
Really?
But she is the one that I always say Julie's the brains of the operation. She went on and did something with her degree. She got her pharmacy degree, PharmD, from VCU or MCV. Really proud of her for continuing with that. But that was not an easy major either. She really went through it in biochem and then on into pharmacy school. So.
Yeah, that course you just referenced. What was the name?
Organic chemistry.
Organic chemistry.
Yeah.
That's the weed out.
That's
course.
the weed out for if you're biology or biochem or chemistry. That's considered the weed out. I think there's probably like 10 courses in engineering I've heard. Depending on the school, differential equations, linear algebra, all of that. It's so much math. Like you think you're done when you get calculus, and that's just starting your math journey. Physics. Some of the physics classes I think I've heard are also pretty tough. So, yeah. Well,
you mentioned Julie. I heard her version of how you met. I want to see how your version matches up with it.
Okay. Yeah. This feels like an interrogation.
Because apparently there were some interesting nicknames for each other, or the groups of people that you lived with. So
we were actually telling the boys that story again the other day. Actually kind of backtracking even like from the very beginning. So we were both at Virginia Tech for all 4 years, didn't know each other until I think we saw each other, kind of acquaintances, or waved to each other starting our junior year, because we lived in the same apartment building. Julie and her roommates were kind of diagonally below my roommates. We were on the second floor at the Chase Apartments, who I came to find out my friend Dave Henderson also lived in those very same apartments a year or two after we did. But and I think Michael Vick did too. So there was a lot of history in these apartments. So we just missed Vic. But so Julie and her roommates had moved into this apartment. And the even funnier irony to this is my roommates, we were very organized. We'd paid a deposit on our apartment and we were ready to move in. About 2 weeks before we were supposed to move in, we got a letter from the apartment complex saying, sorry, there's no apartments. And we're like, what is going on here? Like we did all this stuff several months ago. My mom, who's a real estate agent, knew all of the real estate laws, chapter and verse in the state of Virginia, and kind of read through all the paperwork we'd signed and knew we'd paid our deposit. And essentially back then, this is when you wrote letters, sent a strongly worded letter or fax or whatever that pretty much said if we didn't get this apartment, there's going to be repercussions. Yep. So needless to say, we got our apartment. And so, we got our apartment, had a great junior year there in the Chase. Julie and her roommates did. We kind of just were like toddlers, parallel play. We didn't really interact too much other than the fact that they would kind of come in and you could kind of walk into your sliding glass, the balcony. We had a balcony and they had you could walk at grade into their sliding glass door. And that's the way they came into their apartment a lot. So we'd wave, and they'd always have their country music on, and their big hair with bangs and everything. And so we were always like, yeah, that's the Redneck Girls downstairs. And little did we know, like we had developed a nickname because I guess we were kind of studious and clean and like not your typical like frat boys or anything like that. Right. I mean, we had fun, but apparently we were known as the Dorks. So how we got together is still boggles my mind. At the time, so our senior year, fast forward to senior year, I had a girlfriend at Washington and Lee, and my roommates were all back at Tech for the weekend. And Julie, I think it was her belated birthday party, but it was her responsibility to get the keg for the party. And she needed somebody. You've met Julie. She's not big enough to carry a keg. Maybe 3 Julies could maybe carry a keg, but she saw my roommates hanging out on the balcony. They said, "Hey, I need somebody to help me carry this keg in." They volunteered, helped her get the keg into the apartment, and they hung out and said, "Man, we hung out with the Redneck Girls and had a great time all weekend, and we're going to do it again next weekend or this week. We're going to go hang out." So I was like, "Well, that sounds like fun. Let's go do that." And so met Julie, all the roommates are great. We've maintained very close friendships with all of them since that time, and yeah, the rest is kind of history. But since that time, we were like, well, how did we started talking about how we didn't get the apartment, and it turns out Julie and one of her roommates, Amy, had been babysitters for the complex manager. Oh. And they didn't quite have all their act together prior to the summer and said, well, we need an apartment. She's like, I can make something happen. So the conspiracy that I still adhere to is that those girls took our apartment and then, it all worked out. I was like, well, if you hadn't, we never would have met. But she says that's not how it went. But I contend to this day that's how it went down.
Well, that story matches up very, very closely with what she told me.
Okay, good.
I do need to apologize to her because she asked me to keep the keg part out.
Sorry,
but you did that.
That's
so
right. I mean,
it wasn't my fault, Julie.
College and beer. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. People drink beer in college. Newsflash.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, why? What's the big deal?
Although apparently not now. I was been reading that like drinking is way down, which is probably good. Good for kids. I just hope they're not getting into other things worse than that.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for others, but the kids my kids hang around with, I don't think it's down.
That's right. They didn't get
the
memo yet.
No.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so great story, college. I want to get into the business side of things because that's kind of where we're going. But before we do, I've got to ask, Nature Camp?
Nature Camp. Okay. Nature Camp was a big part of my life growing up. It's actually, when it was founded, it's been around for a number of years. It was founded, I think the original was up in Shenandoah Lake. And then they relocated to a part of the National Forest in Vesuvius, Virginia, I'm going to say back in the 50s. So it's been around long enough. Even my dad went to the camp. And the Virginia Federation of Garden Clubs started it. So think about all these ladies who ran garden clubs wanted to establish this camp where you send kids, to kind of get them to appreciate nature more and go on like wildflower hikes and birding and do all those kind of things. Since that time, it's kind of morphed. I think the contributions from the garden clubs have probably waned over the years, although there still is a connection as I think there are clubs that still provide scholarships and things like that. But the camp has become kind of independent, and then it's supported by a foundation. It's a great camp. Met a lot of great kids. There's just kids mostly from Virginia, but there would be kids from all over the country, sometimes out of the country that would come every year as a 2-week session from basically the end of your 4th or 5th grade year all the way through high school. And then after that, you'd have the opportunity, they'd bring some kids up on staff. And so I did that for 7 or 8 years as a camper, and then worked as a counselor, and then worked as a cook for 2 years, which was really interesting for cooking 120 meals, 3 meals a day.
Are you a good cook?
I'm passable.
Do you cook at home much?
I do. And with Julie's job, especially early on, her hours are much better now than they used to be, but she used to have to work nights, weekends. And with young kids, at some point you can only do chicken nuggets so much. So, which is still, that's no judgment,
It's a
like
staple.
we get by with that. But so yeah, and even still to this day, I cook a lot. Julie, sometimes her hours are a little bit later than mine, so I'll get home and make something, and it's edible.
What's a specialty for you?
Well, I mean, you got the staples. You got tacos and spaghetti.
Okay.
You got to be able to do that. I tell you, one thing that kind of got me back into it is we did do HelloFresh for a while, and those were great because you just don't have to think. You just kind of go through the postcard and cook. But it got me thinking about, combinations again. It got me thinking about the cooking I used to do too. And, we used to have like basically this kind of cook's Bible, I would say, of all these recipes passed down through the generations. And so I kind of found some of those again. I'll make some things like that. But we would make some things that I don't think the kids would like too much. We'd make like shepherd's pie and stuff like that. But, at the time then it was great. The guy I worked for, the director of the camp, going back to nature camp, his name was Colonel Jack Reeves, and he was a biology professor at VMI. And he was kind of this old school, even though it was called nature camp and you'd think we'd eat a lot of vegetarian or low meat options, he was big into like making sure there was meat at every meal. Which would be tough because there would be times he'd be like, I want pork chops. And, it's hard to get kids to eat pork chops. And he'd like, I want 3 pork chops for every person, every meal. So we'd make, 400 pork chops and have like 250 left after each meal. So you had to kind of get creative with like, after you've made that many pork chops, what do we do with all these pork chops when we're done? Yeah, so I learned a lot. We'd bake our own bread. Every Sunday, there'd be Sunday hikes. We'd make, like basically a big Thanksgiving dinner. We cooked, 4 big turkeys, and the kids would come back. That was always a big favorite because they'd be hungry from these long hikes and just, a typical Thanksgiving dinner in the middle of the summer. But it would be, it was a lot of fun.
So if there's one meal now where someone said you need to cook something, what would that one meal you'd want to cook be?
Oh, gosh. I'm kind of more the grilling guy now. So I'll be the grilling guy. Julie and Drew, my oldest, Drew is the one that's really taken off.
Is he
honestly.
really?
He will make chicken parm and homemade pasta. He'll make his own pasta.
All right.
Let's see. When he was home recently, he made a salmon dish with some sort of glaze on top and risotto, like this salad, spinach, and special salad that he made. Like he just, and I was like, well, how'd you come up with that? He's like, well, we ate something at Isabella's one day and I really liked it. And I was like, well, where'd you get all the rest? I just AI. He just went on. He's like, this is what I want to make, and that's what he did. So I would say I'm probably more the grilling guy. I'm good with the sides. I can chop up the potatoes, the vegetables, kind of season them, get them in the oven. I like that. But I don't know that I'm passable. So.
I can't tell you how many parents are probably out there just so jealous that their kid's not cooking the way Drew is.
Right. Yeah. I
mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I wish my kid would come home from school and
it's actually, it's really now, he, every dish in the kitchen gets used. So, but I'm fine because the food is great. I was like, if that's the part I have to do and just clean up the kitchen when you're done. He's definitely one of those that clean as you go is kind of falls by the wayside, but he's phenomenal cook. Will always love making or eating whatever he puts together. So, yeah.
Now I understand, circling back to nature camp, that you had a tough time getting your kids to want to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, let's see. Partly, I think it's just like life intervened. They got into sports a lot in different camps, maybe sports camps, things like that. My youngest, Jake, did go. I think he probably would have gone a little bit more. He started, I think COVID happened. So there was a summer, I don't even know that they did it at all. And then when they went back, there was, I think there was even like COVID went through camp one summer. So they had to kind of go home early. So his few times he went, he really enjoyed it. And so I think we just missed the boat, and it's amazing now. I mean, kids have grown so fast. Mm-hmm. Like Jake's a senior now. So it's hard to believe that I've gotten to this point.
It does.
I'm like you, Rich. Really I'm like,
ready to be the empty
next
nester.
Week we'll have another high school graduate and then an empty nester. Yeah.
It has its advantages.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll tell you
there's yeah.
So I'm guessing that nature camp was probably a big influence in terms of you being a bio major.
Yeah, I would say that probably is when we go back, because you would take classes there. You'd take botany, limnology.
Sounds like
ecology.
great summer fun.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like it does. Like,
I'm shocked your kids weren't lining up. Like, do you want to go to sports camp or?
So now you see why our group is called the Dorks, right? But it somehow it was made fun. Like, I think that's the thing. But I think it was because the classes were taught by essentially kids not that much older than us. It was, kids in college who had those same interests. So it wasn't some old crusty professor. You were out in nature, you learn a little bit, but then you go for a hike or go for a swim in the creek or so the classes were, they were over in time where you're starting to get bored and it's like, well, let's go play kickball or go hit the pool or that sort of thing. But it was enough to kind of get you thinking about that and get you curious. I've always been just a curious mind. I think it's carried over to my boys. Drew, he's a big reader. Like I hope it would take with Tyler and Jake. I think it will a little bit, but I think these devices in our pockets have been tough for everybody. But so it just got me interested in the world around me, and that's probably why I went that path. And I'm still interested in those kind of things and read a lot, science books and dorky books, I guess. But
not just the sports pages for you anymore.
Yeah.
So you go to college, you're a bio major, you realize that, hey, if I really want to pursue this, it's more school. Totally understandable. I've had enough school.
Right.
Ready to do something. And so at that point, you jump into the family business?
Right. Let's see.
With or without the intention of it being a long
I think there was the intention to make it a long term. I think at the time I came on, I'm trying to think, my grandfather was pretty much retired, but still had an office. So what I liked about that is I always had a great relationship with Lloyd, Lloyd Granville Flint, LG Flint. So we had a great relationship. He was a good mentor. I learned a lot from him. He would stop by the office some. Dad obviously was there, and we had some other project managers and that sort of thing. So I started more in the field, kind of worked my way up. Even though I'd been in the field some, I stayed in the field, kind of worked my way into a more long-term office management position. But really was given the time and the space to grow in it. Everyone knew I didn't go to tech for construction management, so I had to kind of learn a little bit from the School of Hard Knocks, and I did. But also learned, I think, through my grandfather and then especially Dad, just the patience it took. But also what I think I really liked about the business was it's something different every day with what we do. It's not like going to the factory and just making a widget. It's the same thing. Every project we do is different. There's different challenges. I really got interested in remodeling, additions remodeling, because I still am. I think that's a niche that we've kind of moved into even more so. Maybe it's just because that's the way my personality is. You definitely you build a relationship with your client, and you can have some highs and lows in the project life cycle. But I think I was well suited for that with my personality and the people that I'd grown, I'd kind of watched and learned from. So, I think it didn't take long for me to say, yeah, this is something I want to do. But there were challenges where I still felt like there might be an off-ramp until I'd say maybe 10 years in, and then I was really kind of committed. I was like, yeah, this is something, let's keep going with this.
It was interesting too when you told me previously that, you don't really think you're a great carpenter, right? And you're thinking building homes and contracting and all that, in a lot of cases, people who start it, that's their strength.
Right. Yeah.
But that was never
right. Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
sure you're still pretty handy.
Passable. Okay. Yeah. Actually, did you
I'm
talk
hearing
to
that
Julie
word
about
a lot.
Talk to Julie about that. I don't know. She might some of the projects around the house. No, I would consider myself.
Do you ever hear, don't you own a construction company?
That's
Can't
right.
you fix that?
The bootmakers' kids don't wear shoes. That happens around our house sometimes where, things don't always get done the way she'd like to see it. But for the most part, I feel like I can hold my own. But there are some guys, too, that you just see, and they're phenomenal. We've got some guys that have been with us, probably 40, 45 years, and they know everything. And we were talking to one the other day, and we're like, well, Ron was like, well, how do you consider yourself a master carpenter? He's like, well, I don't. He's like, I'm still learning something every day. And that was kind of interesting to me that even this guy who's getting close to retirement is like, I'm still learning every day, still improving. And that's what is kind of fun about the business is there's new techniques, new things to use. So you've got these older carpenters, but they're the ones that, Ken are trying to pick up some of those new techniques and, implement it into what they may already know.
So for you, not being self-admittedly a great contractor or a great carpenter, you wanted to, you needed to, maybe you were kind of forced to, your dad as well, learn all different parts of the business because that makes it easier for you to run the whole thing, understanding what everybody else is dealing with.
Yeah, I think and I've mentioned to my boys, the other aspect to this, probably if I had more so than maybe construction management or something like that, or an engineering background, just a business background, that's probably the biggest school of hard knocks. I think, and I don't know that you necessarily have to go to college for all that, but just learning to look at a P&L and a balance sheet and know what those mean, and just kind of some basics of finance and how to work that out, the ebb and flow of the tax season, and when to buy equipment and kind of help maybe offset some taxes, and so all those things kind of came into play. HR stuff, just dealing with people, and maintaining a good loyal crew. How you kind of finesse that, whether it's not always just money, sometimes it's benefits or time off or things like that. So I don't know that you can learn all that at college either. It's
Right.
just taken years of just kind of watching it and then doing it and making mistakes and then just kind of, tinkering with it. And I think we've got to a good spot now with our office personnel, our field guys. They're just great to work with. And really proud of all of them. And we don't have a lot of turnover. I think we really pride ourselves on building a good core group of guys. And, it's taking time and just, it takes time. There's no easy ways to get into it. So
The housing crisis in 08, 09, big downturn, housing market took a massive hit, stock market, everything took a big hit. That was really difficult for the company at that time. And that was kind of I don't know if it's the right term, but a watershed moment for you, because at that point you're sitting there thinking, is this what I really want to do? At that point,
right,
you and Julie even considered potentially leaving the area.
Yeah, I would say because of what she does and her folks were in Maryland and now they're in Florida, but being close to family has always been important to us. So thankfully my family is here, but there was probably that thought of, do we go somewhere? And I think the downturn probably made it that where you start thinking about that a little bit more. So by then we just had our third child in 2008. So we were getting a little bit, our roots were here, but we weren't completely rooted. If I think about that, Drew probably wasn't even in kindergarten yet or was just starting that. So that was probably the time, if we had to, we would have. But I think we also realized this was a great area to raise a family.
Right.
Julie was kind of coming around to that. I had kind of always been there. And then just kind of digging in and just being committed to it. And even though it was tough, having Dad there, I think I mentioned and maybe a prior conversation, but he's just kind of the eternal optimist. Always liked his outlook on life, and so that helped. Even though when times felt like they were pretty tough. And we also saw, I think, some green shoots too, because what happens is when you have downturns, it's not always the end of the world if you're doing things right. There's other guys that kind of go off the table. We were able to, in some regards, coming out of that, pick up market share. So by 13 or 14, we're getting stronger and stronger. Prior to COVID, we were on a pretty good trajectory. And then COVID hit, and we thought that would be another and it was maybe for 2 weeks. Everybody was like, hair on fire, this is going to be terrible.
Right, yep.
And then it turned into be like one of the busiest times we've ever had.
Well, we were really lucky, and this was one of the times where I felt, best about being in Lynchburg was during COVID, because you're talking to people in other areas, whether it be, up north where I'm from or buddy down in Raleigh, and they're like, the city's a ghost town.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Here in Lynchburg,
Yeah.
we didn't really shut down to that degree. I mean, I still remember, going out to lunch with people when talking to folks in other cities going, what? You're still leaving the house? You're not worried? It's like, no, life kind of goes on.
Right.
And I felt really lucky to be in Lynchburg then, because we didn't go to those extremes. Yeah. And that helps you guys, obviously.
Yeah. And I think our, looking back, I think our business, contracting was deemed an essential business. So we had a few hoops we had to jump through. I think the Northam administration, we had to put like hand wash stations. We had to do some things, but and some testing and some things like that that we had to get involved in. And we took it seriously just because nobody really knew what was going on at the time, and we were just for our guys too. We wanted our guys to be healthy. We wanted our certainly our customers, that sort of thing. So we took it seriously, but worked through it all the way, and also managed customers' expectations. Sometimes we did have some customers that were maybe a little squeamish, especially those first few months. Where it's like, what do we do? Kind of work through them and with their concerns, and then it just became one of those things. People were sitting at home, and they're like, we want to do this, and that. So a lot of I think probably the worst part of it was schools. Schools did have a little bit of a hit, so that's where sometimes people were home, but it benefited us because everybody's sitting there and thinking of projects they wanted to do on their house. And then, so I would say leading up to that, we were maybe 60% residential, 40% commercial, maybe a little bit more commercial. And then it just became like 95% residential.
Well, the other part of the equation though was because people weren't traveling, they weren't doing a lot of other things. They had extra money to, if I'm going to be home, I want to redo my kitchen or bathroom or, put an expansion on. If I'm going to have all these kids running around the house for God knows how long, let's build them a room or something along. So there was more money and more ideas, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That, and so, that just kind of kept spurring that. And I think what's kind of been interesting since then, and I've been, reading up on some data through the NAHB, but what's kept us strong in additions and remodeling is that even since then, of course, we've seen housing has just become so expensive. We talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID housing prices. It's like night and day. And then trying to build things, whether development costs and cost of land and that sort of thing. So new construction, while we're still doing it, it is more and more costly. It's kind of pricing some people out of it. And so our housing stock's getting older, but it's leaving a good opportunity to continue to do additions and remodels because that's going to have to happen. So that's, I don't know if that's a good thing long-term, but we do need to kind of be building more, and hopefully affordability will be solved or at least helped a little bit, whether that's interest rates or just prices in general. But I think we're in a good spot where we can kind of move and do those nice custom residential new builds, and then stay in the addition remodel market.
Are we running out of space? Let's just say in the city, as far as building new homes? I mean, are we now really starting to see an expansion into the counties?
I think that's, and there's pros and cons with that too. I mean, transportation issues become an issue. You know, I think one thing that's attractive about Lynchburg and the area is traffic generally isn't that bad, but as we spread out, you know, there might be more and more pain points there. I think what you're going to probably see, and I've been seeing coming up in some legislation. I'm getting more and more into that with our state home builders. I'm on that board. And so I get to see some of their legislative updates and allowing more density in some of our zoning laws is probably coming. And that's not just here, that's kind of around the country in more urban settings, allowing a little more density. There's some ADU laws.
ADU.
So those are the accessory dwelling units, they call it. So basically in the past, a lot of that was more limited to you. An ADU had to have like a family member living in it, so you could build one on your property with pretty strict limits to how it's built. Those rules are loosening somewhat. And so you might see more and more ADUs being built, more density, more single family attached, so whether it's duplex, triplexes, tighter lot lines, because really the development cost, just the cost of developing raw land, especially in the city with curb and gutter, the road, water, sewer, street trees, the lighting, everything, sidewalks, it all goes into that. Those costs have gone way up. The land itself has gone way up. The permits and fees, everything, the insurance, everything you do, the bonding to do it, all adds to, pre-COVID, we could probably do lots in Lynchburg for like $50,000. Now lots are 90 to 100,000, sometimes 150,000. And then even out in the counties, they're going up too. And there's less infrastructure that has to be put in out there, but you're seeing those lots go up as well. So that causes the spread.
Is when you're talking about going from 40 or 50 to 150, I mean, we're tripling the price in just a few years.
Right.
Is that due to supply and demand? Is it due to other issues? I mean, well, you mentioned Dave Henderson. I know he's running for council, and that's just a whole big mess. I mean, is that part of the issue?
Yeah, and I think Dave he's got some interesting ideas. He's on the planning commission, so he's kind of right in it with thinking about some of these issues. But part of it is Lynchburg it's tough because they call it the city of Seven Hills, right? Mm-hmm. So we built on a lot of the great land so far. So the next land that you might be able to build, there's plenty of land left in Lynchburg, but some of it's harder to build on. Mm-hmm. So we did that development, Blackwater Run. Right. There are some things that they allowed in our development that they used to really kind of discourage, but getting technical here, but it used to be they only wanted gravity sewer. Now they allow you to put sewer pump systems in. If you get those designed, you can put those in. So what they're trying to do is allow you to build in land that probably previously they would have said, no, we don't want you to build in there.
Okay, so I'm not a builder guy.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about that type of thing, is that like what a house perks for? Or?
Well, that's different. So in the county, a perk would be how you put a septic system in.
Okay.
And the city kind of discourages that. In some areas, if you have bigger lots, they'd still allow septic, but they've tried to go.
But is that like a similar concept in which, if a house only perks for 2 bedrooms, but you get the right pump in there, you could put more in? Is that similar
in
to
the city? What they're saying is they'll let you get your sewage into their gravity system, but you have to put a pump system in to pump it into it. So you could build however many bedrooms you want. You're not limited.
Okay, but I was just meaning the pump type of thing.
The pump mechanism. So it adds more cost to the customer. They do have to put this pump in and maintain it, but it does allow you to build on some maybe less what was at one time less desirable land because the city wouldn't allow you to build there. They're now allowing that more and more. So those are the things we're going to probably continue to see is they're going to have to kind of open up those spaces that maybe were not considered buildable before so we can get a little more density in there. And Dave, I think has been studying a lot of things, and that's one of them is like how we can encourage more of that. But then you've got to think about transportation and how you move people around. If we get everybody in there, are they able to move around? GLTC, there's kind of issues there we've seen. So there's, I'm encouraged by some of these guys that are throwing their hat in the ring because I think our council really needs it. And I think there's something big happening on Saturday that hopefully maybe that will get our first, inkling of kind of how things are going to go over the next few months.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to get into a political thing, but I was just wondering how much the council, when you're talking about prices tripling for lots in just a few years, it's like what's causing that?
And it's building costs too, right? And not just here, but like I was listening to this guy talk. His house burned down in the Palisades fire. No, this is California, so we're talking California money, but. Over there, I think prior to the fire, it was still a lot. It was like $450 or $500 per square foot to build out there. Now he's having trouble finding builders that would do something for $1,000 a square foot.
Wow!
So he doesn't even have the insurance payout to rebuild. So the numbers are just astronomical. Luckily, we don't have those numbers here, but it's still. I don't know if you remember, for many years you could drive up to Charlottesville, and on the side of the road there, until maybe 6 to 8 years ago, there was a billboard on the side of the road, I remember, and there was this tract builder that said, we'll build houses for $100 a square foot, which is crazy. So pie in the sky, even for like a tract builder now. COVID hit, and then 200 is probably considered low, and it's gone up from there. So. This building cost, raw land, developing the land, all of those things have come into play to make things a lot tougher on the build.
One of the things that I know that's really important to you for LG Flint is honoring the legacy of your father and grandfather. Mm-hmm. And you talked about optimism and honesty, and some of the core values that they held. That that's important for you to continue on in the business. But another one of those words was loyalty. Mm-hmm. And, looking back to 08, 09 and that really tough time, you didn't lay anybody off. Your company didn't lay anybody off, but you said you had to kind of change the type of work you looked for and work harder to find jobs and do different things to make sure that you didn't have to lay anybody off when lots of other companies were. Right.
We worked hard on making sure we kept our workforce. And actually, when I think about it, we probably even expanded coming out of that. But first of all, we all kind of took a little haircut, but we sat down with our guys. We talked about the realities of where we were. And then we went out and just found work in different ways. One thing that happened was, I would say, some of the larger contractors in the area, Jamerson Lewis, English, those kind of contractors, they were in the same boat. They kind of went to the point where they maybe just had laborers and superintendents, but didn't really have a lot of carpenters. So for a few years there, we kind of went and helped them on larger projects. And one way that we kind of got our foot in the door is Reed Newton and I, who we now have a window business together, had kind of partnered up. And Reed obviously was selling the windows, but he put me in touch with a guy, Tim Coates, you may know. Tim has been in the window business for years, and he helped me train several of our guys, got AMA certified for window installations, which is kind of the gold standard for commercial window installations. And so that kind of helped as these contractors would have larger projects, we would just essentially go install windows. And then sometimes those projects would entail higher end trim work and that sort of thing. We'd provide the crews for that. So, we adapted to the conditions. Obviously, we weren't getting rich doing that, but we were keeping our crews going. And it was a way to kind of hold serve, so to speak, while conditions improved, and then we could kind of get back to growing once things did. So I'm proud of that. It was hard work at the time, but it paid off.
And it wasn't too long after all that your dad sort of started transitioning the business to you. Talk about that time.
Right. So I would say a few years after that, I was vice president, Dad was president. We kind of switched, and nothing really dramatically changed other than, I started taking on more and more admin roles. I'd been much heavier in project management and just kind of out in the field. Started staying around the office more, helping with the admin part of it. And then by 2019, actually, I remember it was kind of our Christmas party, 2019, was kind of commemorated Dad, and so his retirement, that was in our party. And I think he looks back now, because that was just prior to COVID. He's like, I'm so glad, I kind of got
Right.
out then. And he's been really enjoying retirement ever since then. But I had already kind of been taking on the role of that for several years leading up to that. Probably 2014, 2015 was really fully into running everything. And so it was great to still have him on board as kind of like our technical guy. His engineering background helped a lot, especially with some of our younger guys. He was able to be a mentor, help them, while sometimes maybe I was in the weeds and still getting my footing on the next steps for what I was going to do. So now I feel like the things he was doing several years ago are things I'm able to do. I do like the fact that we built the business where I don't have to be the day-to-day project manager or, fingers in the dike on everything. I can kind of think a little bit more about the business. We've got great people, and hopefully I can be that one. They can stop by and we can talk about maybe technical problems on projects or personnel problems or whatever they're having. And been at it long enough, since 97 full time, that there's not much I haven't seen that I can hopefully lend a little bit of experience to whatever they're dealing with.
So about that time, 19, you're transitioning into the president role. Ron Blackwood's now your vice president. Mm-hmm. Was that about the time that he came on board
Yes.
as well?
If I look back, I think it was March of 19, maybe a little before. Ron always says he had a little bit of a sabbatical. He had been fixing up a house. Ron, as you know, we're both friends with Ron.
Wow, friends is an interesting word.
Yeah. We'll have a separate, I'll interview you for the next one. We'll talk about Ron. But Ron I'd known Ron for years. He'd been a painter, Blackwood painting. One of the first guys I really kind of connected with, and we had a really great connection from the get-go. Had been our painter. I still hold it against him that he left and sold. He sold out to kind of some guys that, like, I don't know, they gave us the runaround. And I still tell Ron, I was like, oh man, because we just kept working with Blackwood painting. Well, Blackwood painting, once Ron was there, was not Blackwood painting. So, but Ron was great. We worked together for several years. Then he kind of moved into the more real estate world, especially commercial. Did that for several years. But I think he would probably tell you, got burnt out, probably that just kind of wound down. And he had been fixing up his house and I think was looking for his next act. And so we went to lunch several times, had some discussions, and knowing Dad was leaving, it was a good time to bring him in to kind of be my right-hand man at that time and help with all types of things, operations, just business development, I think, is a strong suit for him. Ron, sometimes I call the unofficial mayor of Lynchburg, knows a lot of people. I probably know the people that Ron doesn't know, so I think we make a good team in that regard.
I didn't realize that the only way to do business development was to play golf.
Right. He's out there today. So hopefully we're developing a lot of business.
Right. Yeah. But he was described as kind of the yin to your yang. I mean, you guys...
Is that self-described or what's on the notes there?
I may have put that word into somebody's mouth, but I got them to say it.
Right.
But no, I mean, seriously, I mean, you guys seem very different personality-wise and maybe different strengths. And I know that's something that's important to you as a president of a company and, is putting people in the right seats on the bus, right? I mean, putting them where their strengths are.
Yeah, and sometimes I've noticed it's caused a little bit of friction, but that's probably been the most rewarding thing is I watch there's so many different strengths, and there are weaknesses too. And Ron would be the first to admit he's got some. I've got some. Our other staff. So I think what we're trying to do is like really work to the strengths, and then where maybe there's weaknesses, there's going to be someone else that's kind of covering that.
Sure.
So that's, I think, where we're kind of getting to, and just understanding that not everybody's perfect, and I think that's maybe where some business leaders get into trouble is they want a cookie cutter system. Systems are great, but they're also, you got to have a little bit of leeway within those systems to know that I've got to work with the people I've got and try to, boost them up where we can. And so Ron, yeah, he's one of a kind for sure. But yeah.
And you guys have started some other business ventures together separate from LG Flint.
Right, yeah.
Including Blackwater Run.
The development has been great. We still have another phase that, Ron had a few health issues that kind of and actually it's been good because we've been wrapping up what I would call the first couple of phases. And there's another tract that we're really excited about that I think personally has some of the best lots that'll be in the whole neighborhood. And so that's still to happen. But in the meantime, we've got plenty on our plate, just even with LG Flint stuff to keep us busy.
And I got to thank you because that's going to make a great soundbite when you say Ron had some serious health issues, and that was good.
Oh, jeez.
Ashley, you got that right?
Yeah, this is. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're not cutting that part out. Yeah, sorry. Maybe didn't quite. Sorry, Ron.
but Blackwater Run and a big. I don't want to say a big part of that, but a lot of attention has been focused there the last couple of years because of the St. Jude house. So, and that's something you guys got involved in a couple years ago. This year, you're building the second one.
Right.
Tickets.
So
be sold out 2 years in a row.
Tickets will be sold out. Tickets. This will be the most that have been sold in this area. We're up to 16,000 tickets. I really think this is probably one of the most ambitious houses in this area yet. Really excited because we collaborated with the Beauty of Block campaign, which is Brent Gleason, who owns Dominion Block, brought this opportunity to us, along with Ryan Atkins Masonry. Those two have teamed up. They put Beauty of Block is funding that comes from a grant program that's allowing us to build basically an all block house, and with other masonry elements. And so that makes the house unique from the get-go. And then just the features, the architecture of it. We had a great designer, Michelle Fredericks, designed it for us. So just the house in general, it's got a great 2-story, great room with kind of this exposed block on the inside, with kind of, I guess you call it a ground face block. There's so many really cool elements, along with just the national kind of St. Jude sponsors that come in that are able to donate, and then a lot of the more local guys, trades that we bring in, is going to make this a really special house. So the house is great, and we're just looking forward to, I would say by, I think it's mid-August, we will start having open houses that'll run for, I think, about 4 weeks. And then towards the end of that time, we'll get to the giveaway is September 23rd. So
the drawing,
yeah. So if you need more information, it's go to lgflint.com because that's the spot. There's another longer St. Jude website I can't remember. But we have a banner on lgflint.com. If you just go to the banner at the top, that'll take you to their page and plenty of information.
Well, and we'll talk more about the St. Jude house and St. Jude in specific in just a second. But that's continuing, the legacy of your dad and your grandfather, who, the community-oriented stuff has always been important. Habitat for Humanity, I understand. Yeah. Your grandfather was instrumental and one of the founders of the Home Builders Association. And I know you've been involved with that and on the state board. And, so this runs really deep, and the giving back to the community has always been something that's been important to LG Flint.
Yeah, I would say just starting with the home builders, our company wasn't always LG Flint Incorporated. In fact, it's had several names, but at one point we were Home Builders of Lynchburg. And when the Home Builders Association was getting formed, I guess my grandfather was instrumental in being one of those founding members, gave that name over to Home Builders so that we could have the Home Builders, which is now Home Builders of Central Virginia. And we became then LG Flint at that time. But he was always very heavily involved in it. My dad was, and then I since have been president on the board of the local chapter, now on the state board. That's been very interesting and to learn some of the things that are going on with that. And I think some things that I've been excited about that hopefully we can implement here is just one, really workforce development is probably something that we're going to need to be working on more. And then just education for our builders. There's code changes, those sort of things all the time. So being just part of an organization like that has been good over the years. And then, as you mentioned, other community involvement. My grandfather went to the University of Lynchburg College at the time. I always joke my dad and I were the only ones that really out of the family that didn't go there. Lots of aunts and uncles. My mom went there. A lot of connection to that school. Love a lot of people over there still that we know. So that's a great school. And my grandfather was and my grandmother, they met there, were very involved with the school. My mom was been a board of trustee over there. And then just around the community, whether it's dad on the planning commission or serving on the board of the free clinic. Mm-hmm. I'll be going on that board. And another group that we're very close with. We've done a lot of work for them, and what a great mission they have. And Derek Brown, is their new director. Enjoyed getting to know him over the years. Mustaches for Kids. That's another one we've been very pleased to be a part of. They had their first ever corporate team fundraising event last year, and we're happy to say LG Flint came out on top. So I think we laid the gauntlet down, hopefully, for other teams. Who knows? Maybe James River could get in the mix this next year. But I think in a way, we kind of make it team building too. Like the Mustache is a great example. Our guys get involved. They like it. It's actually good networking, and then you're raising money and for children's charities in the area, which, I mean, hats off to Chris Boswell and Lanny Duncan for their vision to start something like that and all the work that they've done over the years.
Circling back to the St. Jude home, you and Julie had the chance to visit the hospital in Memphis, and I understand it was really, really impactful.
Yeah, so that was my second time going through. Julie had a chance to go, and I think during COVID they actually kind of stopped the actual visits in the hospital, but you still get to tour the campus, and you do meet a lot of either current or former patients. And then I think what's really touching for us was two things. We met one. There was a mother who lost her child who's actually a dream home builder. She's based in Idaho, and Julie became really close with her. And just to listen to her story. Then we also listened, there's another mother that works for St. Jude now, has lost a son, and unfortunately her other son has the, I guess, genetic markers to also have, and it's a really rare form of cancer that's almost like non-treatable. But it's really touching to listen to the stories. The son that passed, and a lot of these kids, they're so moved by what St. Jude does for them, and also they see how it helps the families. I don't know. It's really, they're selfless, and they're so grown up in how they interact. Like they become, even though they know maybe they're not going to make it, they want this mission to go on. And it's one of those things that, I'm kind of getting choked up a little bit thinking about, but see those kids know that they may not make it, but they want to see this go on is really impactful.
Mm. And it makes you, and you were telling me too, your whole team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How much, even though maybe they haven't been there and
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
the actual impact that it makes.
Right.
They're all bought in, and it's something that's important to everyone.
It is. That's our guy, our team, our trades. We've had a lot of guys just step up over the past couple of years, but we've talked about this area is just, we have people coming out of the woodwork. We want to help. How can we help? If you're a builder or a plumber or an electrician, HVAC guy, roofer, that sort of thing, it's like, well, this is how I know to help. That's what I do, so I can be part of this project and in my own small way contribute in a way that's raising a significant amount of money for this great organization. And just to reiterate, like if a child has cancer and they can get to this program, that St. Jude will pay for all the transportation, families, extended family. They'll get them there. They'll put them up. Treatments, all the treatments are covered. If they're in some sort of school, so they don't get behind, they'll find ways to tailor their education so they can stay on with that. No charge at all. None of it's and think about it. This is, most of us are thinking about, like, can I pay for my kid's school or college, or I want them to go to, any of these other things. And so to take that worry off, which they've already got enough, is huge. And then the research that they do too. I think the other thing is the statistics are, when Danny Thomas originally had this concept, childhood cancer was killing about 80% of all kids that were diagnosed. So anytime they were diagnosed, about 80%. That number is now down to about 20%. And some cancers were even better. We're saving about 97% of kids. When before, it was almost considered a death sentence. And they're also really good at working on what I would call like orphan diseases, where there's not enough research money to help because maybe only 20 or 30 kids get it in the world. But St. Jude has the ability to do research to maybe help those things that typically wouldn't get researched. So it's pretty remarkable. I would encourage anybody, if they ever get a chance, to go there and great program, and we're happy to be a small part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you've done it. This is now a second year, and I don't want to look too far ahead, but the passion that you're kind of showing and the knowledge that you're showing for this. I mean, it seems like this is something you and LG Flint would be interested in being involved with.
Right, as long as they'll have us. We talked about it. We need good media. Thank you for this platform to speak about, but good media partners make a big difference. We can only amplify our voice so much. So having good media partners on board are what helps our local house. There's two others that are built in Virginia, one in Hampton Roads and one in Richmond, and I pride ourselves on our build on that. We typically sell out faster than the other localities, and we sell as much or sometimes more tickets. So it's nice to know, for when I consider Lynchburg, much smaller than those two areas, but we're really right there with them on that.
Well, and you touched on Mustaches for Kids, and there are so many great nonprofits and charities here, but the people of Lynchburg really do step up to support local charities. And St. Jude isn't even local.
Right, yeah.
But it's something that has such a great impact on.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what's St. Jude does a great job, too. They paired us up with, there's a young fella this year that we are working with from the Amherst area that's gone through treatments at St. Jude. And so it does impact our area, because we've got these real world examples of, I think he was diagnosed at a very young age, infant, I think. And, now he's standing here today in his 20s. And so having these kind of success stories, and sometimes they're not success stories, but those can be impactful too, to know, the effort is there. The effort's being put in, and hopefully we're learning something every day, so the next child can live and have that better outcome. So it's great working with that team. Really gotten to know their people as well, and it's been a good experience.
Tell me about Andyisms. Andyisms. An example, and I hear you have a million of them.
Well,
but you have people that are grouped together talking, and it's, if I were a grenade, you'd all be dead.
Well,
and
that's
apparently you get them from your grandfather.
Yeah, that's actually a Lloydism,
okay.
I think. So I don't really put that one out there that much, but we like to tell that story sometimes because my grandfather went to World War II, came home, founded this business, and I think that was an expression. He had this knack for kind of just showing up on job sites and being quiet and just kind of being there. And then he would sometimes I think he'd walk right up into the group and just kind of say this, and then they'd all scatter. The painter would be painting, the sheetrock, the plaster. And so that's a Lloydism, but it's I think it's something that we like kind of circulating around the office.
But are there Andyisms too? I hear
there are, but Ron's going to have to tell you those. Like, I don't even know.
You don't even know them?
I don't even know when they come out. Ron chuckles because I guess he just thinks that they're so funny. But when I'm saying them, it's just me. It's just dorky Andy.
Well, apparently one of them that's caught on around your office is, you know how Andy is?
Oh, and that's not an Andyism either. That's a officeism. So that was coined. You've met Golden Boy, Chris Burris. So Chris has been with us a little over 10 years now. He's close to 11 years. Chris has been with us longer than Ron. So we brought Chris on. Ron likes to really pat himself on the back for Chris, but I like to think that I brought Chris on and it's worked out. But so I think one thing, dating back to my grandfather, and the grandfather, as I understand it, had a mercurial, is that the word, temper? I think it was pretty a quick fuse and would just kind of go off. I never really saw that. The Lloyd I saw was much milder, great, just funny, quick wit. Dad, same, very patient, but there were times we're in construction business. Things sometimes don't always go the way you expect, or you're having issues with people, and watch out when he reached his boiling point. And I was probably a little bit more like my grandfather early on. Chris, unfortunately, maybe saw some of that early on. I like to think I've tempered that a little bit, but there are times I think that you let loose a little bit, and sometimes you regret it. So I think that's where the how Andy is came up, and sometimes I use that as just in the back of my mind as a cautionary, I've gotten better. Actually, Chris has been good. Sometimes you get those emails that are like, oh, I need to fire something off, and I'm really upset about this. But I think just urging a little bit more restraint, in the back of my mind has been good, and I try to continue to do that. So,
any truth to the rumor you could have used more of that the other night at the glass soccer game?
Last night, maybe the refs were a little frustrating. That wasn't my. That's not the worst I've ever been. I will say that was my youngest Jake's last game. They unfortunately lost to Blacksburg 3-2 in a hard fought contest, but it was a little bittersweet because I was thinking about that on the ride home, and I think probably almost 2 decades of organized sports with my kids. A lot of soccer, a little bit of lacrosse, some baseball thrown in there, but the boys love soccer. I love watching it. I didn't play it that much as a kid, but I've really enjoyed watching it. And watching last night was a lot of fun. I'm going to miss watching them, but I think probably look forward to maybe going and watching some Hokie games this fall too.
So are you all in on the World Cup?
I don't know. I'm not. The U.S. team kind of scares me a little bit. I don't think they're coming into it as I'd hope they'd be a little bit better rounded into form than they are. There's some great parts and pieces over there, but obviously I'd be going for them. The World Cup is a lot of fun though, and I think it'll be fun. I think it's unfortunate because I think there's something about it. And I was reading something the other day, I think soccer is such a European, or so driven by the European leagues that, let's just say England, for instance, I think typically they like having it in the European time zone. So they're saying, well, when the games start, they're going to mostly be asleep or watching them, in bed on their phone, as opposed to kind of the pub culture where you can put them on and watch them. And so it seems like maybe the excitement is a little dampened, but hopefully it will, I don't know. It'll be great once it starts. I think we're in that lull where everybody's just kind of like ready for it to get going.
Right. So you mentioned before, your youngest is heading to tech, so you'll have 2 at tech. Drew's already out of college.
And in his PhD program.
Yeah. So empty nest. What's next for you and Julie? What's next for LG Flint?
Oh boy. I always, I'd love for Julie to be able to scale back. I think she works really hard, but I don't mind work. I'm at that point where it's kind of fun, So people are probably like, what are you talking about? But it's fun to go in. Like we said, it's something new every day. Hopefully I would see over the next few years, if Julie doesn't completely kind of retire, maybe scale back or find something that's a little slower for her. And then I would say I'm kind of in that like 5 to 10 year plan. Definitely want to get the kids through school, and then maybe my day-to-day involvement would scale back a little bit. It is nice. We've got some great people. And sometimes like I tell them, I don't ever want to feel like I'm in the way. If I'm getting to that point where I'm in the way, I'll just get out of the way. But it's nice to have people that are competent at what they do, and I can step in and help when I need to, but also I'd like to build it to the point where they don't need me. That's the goal, right?
Yeah. I know we have no idea always what the future holds. But for both you and your dad, there wasn't really a strong intention of joining the family business when you went off to college. Is there any thought, expectation is not the right word, but any possibility that one of your boys jumps in?
Yeah, I mean, I would love it. It's also, I can say from experience, it's a little more fraught than I thought it would be. I think that you feel some pressure, especially early on, to kind of live up to the name and what we've done so far. But I think I would, if that were to come, we'd have a conversation with one, but whoever would be considering that, and I think
have any of them showed any interest in it, as far as you know?
Not a strong serious conversation. I think there's been kind of those in jest, well, when I come on it, I do this and I do that. Drew is aerospace engineering with a computer science, kind of PhD thing. I think he's destined to kind of move along that track. Tyler is currently slated for chemical engineering at Virginia Tech. Jake's business finance. So, I mean, I guess if you're looking at majors, it's Jake. But if we talk about my major, it could be anybody, right? So, like I said, if I had to do it over again, I think business is a great one. Just being able to run a business, and that's not just for mine, but anybody's business.
Yeah.
Start there, and then you can surround yourself with good people that maybe are better, suited for the actual technical part of it. So, yeah.
You never know.
That's right. You never know.
You never know.
So, and I think that's the thing. I'm in it for probably another 5 years, pretty heavy, 10 maybe. And then if one of the boys comes in, maybe I'd be in there a little longer too, just to kind of help usher them into the business. And, but also, I'd want them to find their own way. I don't want it to just feel like some sort of nepotism thing, right?
Yep.
That you got, but there's also just legacy. It's that'd be 4th generation. That's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna force it. But it would be great if it happened. So, yeah.
Talking with Andy Flint of LG Flint. Andy, thank you.
Thank you.